right, so the topic tonight is pretty personal to me. So as Hannah mentioned, like I work with a lot of founders and scaling SMEs, and I think some of you are even in the room tonight. So fundamentally, people are actually wondering, in this age of AI, does search even count? Like, how do we get found? How do we get seen? How do we get acknowledged? And it's funny, I was having a conversation with Luke just the other day, and I know for me personally, like whenever I'm searching now, like I'm searching through an LLM. I'm asking, where's the best pizza? What are the top 10 tips to do, on the weekend? Maybe what we'll do is get a quick show of hands before I introduce the panel. So if I can ask you to raise your hands if you consider yourself an active user of AI. Yeah, like using it every day? Yep. All right. Let's see. How many of you are using ChatGPT? Yeah. Okay. Perplexity? Okay. Claude? Ooh, big Claude audience. What else have we got? Gemini? Copilot? Okay, all right, okay. And out of all of the various platforms that you're using, how many people are forking out and using a paid model? Okay, all right. Good audience, all right. So, fundamentally, the question that's brought us all here tonight is if you're not showing up in an LLM when you're searching, do you even exist anymore? So tonight we're going to be going through, the gamut of, how the machine works, how do you get found in search, what this means, in terms of your digital build, your reputation, and also, are all things created equal, in a world of AI fakes and deep fakes and AI slop. Wow, that was a good start.
The first one.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I think that's my third now. So someone don't fill me up, okay? So for some of you who have been here before, the run of the mill and how it goes at the Stepney supper, it's a really casual and formal chat. We've got some questions that we've got slated for each of our panelists here. If you have something that is absolutely burning on your mind when a panelist brings it up, don't hesitate to put your hand up and we'll get a mic out to you. We're going to have about half the time, like about 20, 30 minutes of structured questions and then open it up to the floor. But again, it is, anything goes. So feel free to jump in, chime in. And I'm told heckling is actually encouraged here. So this is as much your panel as it is ours. So think of this as a round table. All right, so let's start with our panel intros. So Luke Heffernan, engineer, researcher at the Australian Institute of Machine Learning, business founder and developer with experience across deep tech, AI and space. So what I want to do is also give you an idea of what the role that each of our panelists are going to play tonight. So you have an idea of what the expertise are bringing. So Luke is our translator tonight. So his job is to help us to establish a common understanding on how the machine actually thinks. Welcome, Luke. Oh, you can clap for Luke. He likes a good clap. Okay. All right, next up, we've got Terry Williams, founder of Studio Sondar, a branding and web design studio here in Adelaide. Terry is our builder. So her team makes websites and the digital brand foundations, and she's going to set the scene on what it means for humans versus machines. Welcome. Next up, we've got Simon Morelli. He is the sales director at the Online Director, a Google partner, and our paid search and digital marketing specialist. Simon is our pulse check for tonight. He's going to tell us where the money is going versus where it should be going, and more importantly, where it's been wasted. Welcome, Simon. Sam Phillips, Senior Cybersecurity Analyst by day, wow, that's a mouthful, and co-founder of Otter by night. So Sam here tonight is our content authenticity expert. So in a world where AI is generating content faster than humans can prompt it, Sam's here to talk about what happens to businesses and brands in a world of AI slop and why proving you're real is the next horizon. Welcome, Sam. And last on the panel, we've got Celia Harding, founder of PR Shed and Leopard, and based out of Sydney. And I learned just before that Celia has flown in from Vietnam to be here with us today. So she has done the hard yards for the panel. She's got over 15 years in brand publicity across global brands and startups. So Celia's role here tonight is to be the voice of brand reputation. And given that she sits at the intersection of PR, AI discoverability and brand strategy, she's going to give us a flavour of what it looks like in the earn space, and she's a proof in our Search 2.0 pudding. Welcome, Celia. All right, so I think let's kick off straight away. So, Luke, you ready? All right, so in the simplest terms possible, when someone asks, ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude, because most of the room is asking Claude, to recommend a business or a service, how does the machine actually come up with its answer?
I've been thinking about this for weeks now to make sure I can use language that isn't what us researchers talk about in our basements. I was really impressed, actually, kind of surprised at how many hands went up in general over before, but especially the paid side. I'm very interested to see how many people are really building this into their workflows, into their day-to-day. I'm curious how many people, before I jump into trying to explain something that makes no sense to anyone, have looked before at how these models are trained, like the processes, the pre-training, post-training, what these things mean. Could I get a show of hands as how anyone feels confident they've had a good look at that before? 1.5, 2 total, across 3 people. Okay, that's good. No, that helps me a lot because I don't want to be talking about a bunch of gibberish about learning rates and so on. I've got no idea what I'm talking about. I think being asked before of being able to explain how these models think is a great way to how to frame this, because they don't. I think everyone knows that, but what does it mean when they say they don't? And people may have heard before about them being a probability estimator. What does that mean? They're not really thinking, they don't have brains, they're just estimating probabilities, which they do very well. So what does that mean in practice though? If we gave it a bunch of text, how does it understand it? How does it start from nothing? Or if you ask a question, how does it get the first word in response? At the training time, there's 2 phases, right? And once again, stop me at any point if something's not making sense. There's probably a lot of other people in the room thinking the same thing. We start with our pre-training. This is maybe something you may have seen a little bit before, where you hear about these models being given the data from the whole internet in some way. And then what it'll do is go, let's turn this into tokens, which could be some sets of letters, could be some sets of words, depending on what the model is. And you go, I'll give it the first token. And then it has to try and guess what the next one is. Gets told some amount of error. It'll try and learn from that error, try and guess the next token. Error, learn from the error, so on. That's all the first stage. That's how it gets to the point of going, I can predict what the next word is really well. The really early models, if I wanted it to speak like an Australian, crikey, how you go, and all that kind of stuff, I couldn't write in speak like an Australian. I had to write like I wanted it to do first, and it could keep completing it, keep guessing the next word based on the tone, the style, the verbiage, all that kind of thing. The next step on top of that, now it understands language. How do we get it to do something like that with that? Give it a goal, reward it for going towards that goal. This is what is generally referred to as reinforcement learning, and there are many, many ways of doing this. Actually, I want to step back and make sure we understand that last one first before I move on too fast. Really good way to understand this is actually a fairly common game we've probably all played at school or drama class or whatever, whoever's done this before, or every team building exercise ever. Anyone ever played the game where you build a story one word at a time, kind of going down the line? Yeah, we would know it. Do you guys want to play for a second? Like if I start with any word, I start with an easy one, just once.
There.
Was a
Apple.
But you see how like in each...
Our job is done, thank you.
Yeah, that's all of us. That's all of us. I'm going to keep going. But when you start from there, when you start training these models, they have no idea what that next word is going to be. It could be just numbers. It could be Python code. It could be something that predicts after the once, right? But they're I was kind of hoping someone would say upon, but never mind. I wasn't going to put you on the spot. But there's things that we see very commonly, like once upon a time is such a common phrase, right? That if we started with the once in these completion type models, it nearly definitely is going to give you the upon because it appears so often in these situations. And that's where we start talking about statistical probability estimators. If it sees it more, it'll predict it more. If it sees it more, it'll generate it more. That's very relevant to if everything is built on top of this, on this frequency, these statistics, its understanding of language when it goes towards goals and so on in this next reinforcement learning step is still built on top of that, right? The reinforcement then is where you start giving it goals and rewards. You can give it one goal, you can give it many goals, you can say this goal is worth this much, this goal is worth this much, and so on. And then over time, now it knows how to use language, it tries to use language to achieve those goals, and if it does, it gets a little reward and it changes how it thinks, how its probabilities are estimated to go towards that. Some of the early examples of what this means, I think people may have probably participated in reinforcement learning through human feedback in early ChatGPT. A little thumbs up and thumbs down button on there. That's telling it you achieved the goal. You didn't achieve the goal. Also, if you closed the app after a certain number of conversations, or you got angry, all these types of things, gave it feedback to give it a certain amount of reward to go towards one thing or the other. And there's great benefits to this. Like it definitely fine-tunes towards you, each of you, in how you want to solve your problems, the regular things you talk about. We each have niche things in our life that we talk about that other people wouldn't. But then it also builds in sycophancy, things like this, that it tells you what you want to hear as well. If it doesn't know how to answer the question, or if it does, it's still going to tell you in a way that you want to hear it, which, there's a lot of things we can get into about that in general, let alone for marketing. But so that's just one way of doing it. There's reinforcement learning with AI feedback. They train a different AI, gives feedback on whether it works or not, which, seeing as they're trained on us, tends to do the same thing. Reinforcement learning by constitution or values. So put a different set of words to the side saying, here's our values, here's what we want you to do. So rather than checking with a human, one of us for a thumbs up or thumbs down, it checks whether it matches that, trains, something like that. That's the general gist of how most of these models go. But also, I want to take into, make you all think about that we've maybe listed 3-4 models there before. Each of them have been given a different data set, a different group of users that they've been trained on, a different goal, different types of feedback. They all train completely differently then. And they are constantly trying to retrain these things. So I'm trying to give these general principles of how they're trained to keep in mind that that's how they think, that they are just repeating or classifying or categorizing based on what they've seen before. If they've seen a lot that they can achieve their goal by telling someone, this website's really good because it says world best on it, so it's got to be good. And someone looked at it and went, yeah, I can't be bothered looking further. I'll use that one. It's going to start learning that that's the way to achieve that goal. So keep all of that in mind, in that this is largely frequency driven, the number of things that appear online, and goal driven, that if they are meeting their goals, users are training them to go that way. Cool, amazing.
How important then is prompting AI with grammar? If it's fed from like an academic point of view, you're writing an academic paper where you're an academic yourself and you know very punctual ways of writing. Being that's what I learned versus casually talking to it, like how sometimes feels old Steve's now. What is the difference between those and the result?
I do love these ones, and you're going to need to stop me if I do get too technical on this one, because I think there's pretty recent evidence that it's more important than you expect, but it also will change person to person. Like we're saying, this reinforcement learning can be, we could talk about the same things, use different tone, or we could talk with different tone, about different things with the same tone, and they'll learn different things about each of us. The technical part. These models, without getting into the full architectures of, there's an MLP and an attention layer and all this kind of stuff. If you ever do look at those very complex diagrams, you see all these little flowcharts and so on of what's called one attention layer or so on. And what they don't quite often show is that there is kind of stacks of those. There can be multiple, and they all learn at the same time, and they all do like the feedback to you at the same time. But what there is pretty strong evidence for is that one of these might learn grammar more, one might learn tone more, one might focus more on the order of words, so that this word comes before this word and something like that. And those aren't predefined. This is just how it's kind of split its learning across them. There's others that we're still trying to decipher what it is in human just understanding of what this is. But there is something fundamental. It could be something that is cultural, in how we talk. But they can capture a lot of that in ways that we don't fully understand yet. But we do know they separate it out, and it does matter. And the other part to it as well is that over time of you using them, and a lot of these systems have like a memory block now, they'll take notes about what you usually talk about and help frame future things you talk about based on that. So that will, even if you aren't talking in an academic tone in future, they may still bring academics into it.
So Luke, let's say, for example, I'm driving in my car, and I activate the voice activation on Perplexity because I'm thinking, what am I going to have for dinner tonight, right? And I'm like, I need something quick, easy, prepared under 15 minutes. I've got pasta, tomatoes, and I don't know, green beans. If I ask it that question, because I'm going to verbalize a question quite differently to how I would write it, or, I think there's probably a lot of people in the room who's tried that trick of taking a picture of your fridge or the ingredients you want to use and then putting it into a LLM? No? Okay, you'll try that when you get home. So, based on what you just said about the context of prompting, regardless of the memory it has in the background, could we expect that if you're always asking a question verbally versus prompting a question academically versus using visual cues, that it could elicit something different each time?
Yeah, it can do. And I think this lets me bring up the other key thing they've got to say before. So talking about how they think, and we're talking about the frequency and so on, but then how they actually do how do we get the next part at the very start of how they then start like deeply processing it, is when they have trained, they have made a big basically map of all concepts that they've ever seen and how similar they are to each other. Just like, a dog and a cat might be that far apart, but a dog and a Labrador might be that far apart because they're very, 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 the closer you are, the more similar they are, right? If you're talking about one thing versus speaking about another thing, across a set few number of dimensions, they'll be very, very similar. You're talking about the same thing. You're talking about it for the same reason. It's you talking about it. All of those may be very similar, but then the tone you're using like it's kind of implied in your text versus the tone you use in your speech may change that a little bit. So a lot of these things will keep it very close. It'll keep it on topic. If you just go by percentages, you've got like a 60% chance it's going to be very close because of those very strong few things in there. But then there's those other parts in there that go, well, they're talking. Maybe there's something that makes it different today about why they're talking rather than when they're writing it down. Things like that, the time of day, like they capture all this data as well to train on. We're always told previously, everyone's heard if something's free, you're the product, this kind of stuff. They're still using all that data that you don't see. It's not just your text. It's something that they're learning on.
So fundamentally then, if we're breaking it down to how the machine finds us, what is it preferencing, if I use the search example, is it preferencing keywords? Is it preferencing recency, authenticity, frequency? Like what are the things that it's pulling up? Like how is it, when I ask for Bottle near me, or, good wine selections. And especially if you're prompting it, in voice, like, if anyone's using Google at home and like, hey, Google, or hey, Siri, what wine would go well with this meal? And it's giving me one recommendation. How is it finding that?
So yeah, a lot of it comes into that similarity part, and I don't think there's a single metric that these big companies are going to want to skip in trying to understand what that similarity is. It's just going to then come down to how big a model they can afford to make to understand the more and more complex topics, right? So the fact you're asking for pizza, pizza is a fairly simple topic, concept for these to learn. The types of words you're using are fairly simple for it to learn. But as you get to things like authenticity, hunger or stress, all these types of things that you've gone from understanding language to understanding tone, frequency or sort of stuff to then the human experience of stress, the time of day. If you're doing this at 11 p.m. at night, you're trying to find the best pizza place at 11 p.m. at night on a Tuesday or something, there's like a lot they have to understand about who you are to know why you're doing it that late at night at that time, right? So some of the smaller models may not get that and therefore get it wrong more often. But like I was saying before, as they start training more and more and bigger models, that's why we've only been able to have these models produce language at all in the last few years. We couldn't make big models before. As they got bigger, they could start connecting letters, words, paragraphs, topics, styles, that kind of thing. You get above that to authenticity, needs, wants, feelings, and how it matters to you versus you versus you. So everything is going to come into it, but I would say the simpler the concept is, the easier it is for it to use it.
So if I'm understanding that correctly, and maybe this is a question on other people's minds, not only is it about my personal preferences in terms of how I've used that particular LLM before, but it's also taking context that I'm not necessarily giving it in my prompt. Context like the time of day it is, context in terms of, if I'm dropping every second word, context if I'm, speaking or I'm not speaking. Big Brother is watching.
Yeah, everything. And I think when I'm talking about simple as well, and simple includes more unique. So simple, less unique. The things that may be common to everyone in this room, it's going to be able to leverage better the things that may be unique to just you. I think the thing we learn more and more with this is that they are so good at predicting because we are less unique than we like to think we are as well. Yes, which is probably one of the rooms that's going to understand this the most out of any room I can speak to. Yeah. But I think that's my general take. Yeah. You always go back to think about like similarity, like how can it match it to something that's happened before? And then frequency of how often has that thing appeared in its data set before. And that can guide you towards how you use it, but also how you try and appear in front of other people using it.
Wow. So, effectively, we're not talking about SEO 2.0. We're talking about a whole different ball game. This is where your expertise, I think, comes in, Terry. So, fundamentally, you build these things for a living. You build the digital bricks and mortar for companies, for brands. So what does it look like now in terms of that tension of the things that you're having to consider building into that architecture versus previously?
Yeah, for sure. I just want to listen to you do a TED Talk, by the way, on that topic. But in terms of how we want to build stuff now, really, there's technical components in that you kind of need to consider from a website perspective that also quite closely align, honestly, to SEO already. But then there are things that I think as business owners that we need to think about, and brand owners, that is more around how we perceive our brand and how we communicate it. Because at the end of the day, the model is getting context based on how clear you're communicating what you do. A lot of the websites that we've worked on in the past, when we need to reposition, maybe do some new copy, that kind of jazz, it's normally because there's a lot of waffle. Like people aren't very clear about who they help, why it's good, what their approach is, what their services is, and how it actually benefits. And then on top of that as well, there's this additional issue of kind of blending in with everyone else, is that you actually need to have differentiators. You can't just say, here's the deliverables that we offer, here's the services, quite literally, this is what we do. It's who do you do that for? Why is it even important? How does it benefit them? What are they going to get out of it? So I think it comes down to, like, yes, you want to hit all these technical components, which can be a little bit hard if you're kind of doing a lot of it yourself. You can learn a lot, especially if you ask, Claude or whatever to help you with it. It's helpful. But it's actually going back to being really clear about who you are first so that you can actually communicate it properly. because your website will be scraped. It needs to be abundantly clear who you are on that website. So if that kind of answers your question.
So what do you think are the common kind of missteps that companies and brands are making that prevent them from being found?
I think we kind of saw this as well with SEO in general, is that people get really hung up on feeding the algorithm and trying to do all of the right things. And so you start looking at this, you plug your website into, I can't even think of the SEO websites, let's say, for example, that give you scores and tell you all the things you're doing wrong and, tell you off for things that you're not doing. And we get stuck on it, and then we just start ticking those boxes off and just putting content in there that meets an algorithmic criteria without thinking about the person that reads it. Because like with SEO and like with GEO, AI search and all that kind of jazz, at the end of the day, you want people to land on your website, and humans are interacting with your website. You need them to read it, feel connected to your content, understand why they should even work with you to begin with, and then convert from there. So there's that kind of balancing act. So I think if you can really try and think about, one, answering the questions that people are actually asking. There's those questions, right, that go into what's the best, let's just say migration agency, right? What's the best migration agency in Adelaide? They're very literal questions that people ask, but what I want people to try and think about as well is that people are people, and they will ask more emotional questions than that to ChatGPT, especially if it's a B2C business, let's say. Migration, it's bloody stressful if you're moving to a new country, if you're going through a visa process, let's say. There's a lot of other things that people are concerned about. So when, let's say, we're building a website and we're not even thinking about AI, which is great because the brands that do this well naturally just do well in AI search anyway by accident, even if they're not meaning to. But we'll look at, okay, how the common things that people are worried about. So it might be, I don't understand the process. That's largely what people get really stressed out about. There might be other questions that you would go, oh, it's too dumb to ask. And that's the things that people are going to those searches for, the questions that they don't want to go and reach out to you as a business to ask. So if you can start answering those questions, you're going to get in more niche searches also, which is really helpful.
I'm just going to back that up really quick. I reckon a year and a half, 2 years ago, would have kind of disagreed. The models weren't big enough yet to get past some of that keywordy type stuff. But now that's the big selling point of these models, is they can start getting the why. If you've got your wording wrong, but you can get your why from it, especially from having you used it before and understanding you, you're absolutely spot on.
So Terry, is it fundamentally changing, like when you have clients that come to you and they say, okay, I want you to build me a new website, or I need a glow up, and they're effectively saying, okay, I need to be led by you in terms of what best practice looks like now. Do you find that you're building things differently, like in order to answer those human questions, or are you finding a tension in terms of building it so that it is still relevant from an SEO and a geo perspective?
Yeah, it's interesting because I would say the way we like in terms of sections and pages, the way that we structure websites, very similar actually, because we kind of already think like that anyway, like as a business from our perspective at least, which is go deep on strategy first so you have answers to those questions. Like you need to be really clear about what you offer first. But then from a technical perspective on the website, the things that we're trying to approach is first and foremost showing that you understand your audience. That should be the case regardless of if you're trying to optimize for SEO, whatever it is, So being really clear about what you offer and how it helps them, being really relatable. So actually talking about who you are, talking about your background, maybe telling a bit of a story that people can connect with, that sort of thing. Building the authority is super important as well. So showing the experience that you've got, the actual recognition that you've had, those sorts of things that, again, you should just be ticking these boxes regardless. The trust building stuff, super helpful as well. If you've got reviews, that's always going to help with SEO. It's always going to help with AI search. And then the last thing, but the thing that I think people generally don't put a lot of effort in, which does move the market, I would say the most, you might know more than me about this, is, like I said, answering questions. I call them like overcoming obstacles. It's not just questions, but it will be things like I said, the things that people think are too stupid to ask, but just absolutely drilling it down to the simplest things that people don't know. And it's hard as business owners because we know everything about what we do. So we actually don't know what the simplest question is a lot of the time because we've never had to ask it. But drilling it down to the simplest questions into, say, like frequently asked questions sections, very good for both AI and SEO. But when answering those questions, just actually getting to the point, like people don't do that much. Like you can actually have the first thing you say is yes and full stop. Like you just want to be super direct because you don't want like search AI to have to search through loads of content to try and figure that stuff out. Just make it as direct as possible. And then you can get a little bit waffly towards the end. It's okay. But just be really direct up front. The other obstacles that generally people don't add into their websites or don't help their users to overcome that helps in AI search would be things like, I don't understand the process, there's something mystical about it, so spelling it out like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way out, for example. Or also things like, industry specific obstacles like, all SEO people are scam artists, or all builders going to blow out your budget, or all real estate agents are sharks. They're misconceptions because people have had bad experiences, but they're the things that people are going to be asking about or worrying about that are actually going to help. So they're the things that I think are really important. And then just lastly, on a more technical component, I guess, is being consistent in the message that you put out, not just on the website, but elsewhere. So when you've got Google My Business, put the same information there. When you've got directories online or whatever it is, put the same information, like explain your business. It doesn't have to be word for word the same in terms of like a description of your business, but, same address, same phone number, try and describe your business in the same way. Don't get too creative across your platforms, because in the same way that consistency is helpful for a user to understand what you do, it's also going to be helpful for any of these algorithmic thingies. Yeah.
So Cherry, it sounds like, between the web design piece and the brand piece that your organisation does, like it sounds like there's probably a lot more time that's spent with your clients in terms of nutting out that brand piece, like once you've got the architecture. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So one question I have for you then is that, if you're thinking about, the room that we have here tonight, so, we've got people who work in marketing, people who work for brands, we've got some agency folk. What's the one thing that they can do Monday morning to kind of, look at their digital platform with a critical eye, keeping in mind the things that you said?
Yeah, for sure. So the obvious thing would be to literally just start asking questions to it and seeing what comes out. But I think what I would love for people to think about is, rather than just thinking about that surface level kind of question, is going a little bit deeper. So what's the question that people are wondering? Tangible questions, and start just writing stuff down. And then what I normally do when we're doing workshops, for example, is why is that even important? So it gets a little bit layer deep. So if we were looking at that migration agency as like as an example, let's say, and they're going for a partner visa or something like this, your question might be, I've never gotten a partner visa before. Like, you're not going to get that too many times in a row, hopefully. The question might be, I don't understand the process. But if you go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, it might be, I understand this is a really long process that I'm about to go on. How do I make sure my relationship survives it? You know what I mean? Like more emotional questions. And if you can start making blog contents that goes through the different layers of concerns that people have, problems that people have, goals that people have, and you can actually start breaking it down into different topics, it will help you differentiate as well, because you're not just talking so literally, because everyone will be. It'll be, well, why should I pick, what are the best web design places in Adelaide? That's a very broad topic. If you can go layer and layer and layer, it'll help your users see what's valuable in you. But I think it will also help, beef out your content in a way that's a little bit more valuable and meaningful.
All right, Simon, the money man. All right, so I've got a question that's been keeping me up at night.
All right.
This one's for you.
I'll buy it. Yeah.
So, when I speak to a lot of business owners, one of the common things, no matter what the industry is, that they're saying is, I don't know about spending money on Google ads anymore. Just don't know that they work the way they used to.
Yep.
All right, true or false?
It's false. I think a lot of business owners, and potentially they remember the numbers from back in the day, right? They talked about when they left Yellow Pages and they started advertising on Google. And I'm going to give you the biggest revenue or margin drop of any business ever would have been Yellow Pages charging the same price for an ad for a full page for plumbing that they did for life insurance. Right? Like this was the biggest faux pas of their entire business. Yeah. Like they missed so much money. It's not funny. The total customer value life cycle for somebody in life insurance is, tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars, majority margin. Yeah. Versus the plumbers making $150 at the time. Okay. The business owners that generally reference this refer to the fact that, they spun it up. They were paying $3 a click. They're focusing on the wrong thing. Okay. They're not focusing on their ROI. They're not focusing on what that return means for them to get that customer into their ecosystem to subsequently generate revenue and margin for them as a business. All right. If you consider that, yeah, sure, there's been a massive uplift in cost per click. We went from, let's say $3 to $6. It's 100%, right? It's huge. Yeah. My cost per lead went from 100 to 150. But in the same time, since COVID, to build a brand new house went from 200 to 350. Yeah. And if they're maintaining their margin, the 100% increase or the 50% increase from the cost per acquisition in the first place is really irrelevant, right? Like we're nitpicking at this point. Yeah. That businesses probably didn't move. And a lot of my clients, right? And we're still working through this journey that we go through the process of understanding what is the legitimate ROI. Can you track that and attribute it properly? Yeah. To make sure that this campaign is generating me, $1 in equals 100 out or 50 out, and this isn't so much about the ad landscape. It's about their systems. It's about utilizing their CRM, attribution, tracking to generate and be able to run the reports on, hey, the revenue is actually there, the margin is there, because with that information, we can adjust the campaigns to make sure that they're putting it in the areas that are generating more revenue, awesome, which is great, but ultimately as a business, more profit, right? That's what you're in business for. Yeah.
Have you seen though that with the rise of the rise of Claude, Perplexity, ChatGPT, that it's changed the way people are investing in search?
There's, potentially from an SEO perspective, from an ad tech space, like, Chat's got a model they rolled out, Feb? We were talking about this before. 200 grand minimum entry point to run ads on Chat, right? GPT. Google, Gemini, obviously Google's business is ad tech, right? They sell ad space. That's what they do. That's majority of it's their revenue based. And we run ads in the AIOs, we run ads in AI mode, yeah. But generally the AI mode or the AIOs will run on long tail search terms that are not relevant for consumer intent, yeah. Right? I've got a question. I'm asking you a question, yeah. But if I want to find somebody that does decking, house extensions, whatever it may be, the consumer behavior is still directory listing. Yeah. This has been ingrained in us for generations. It's how we do things, and it's going to take a hot minute to change.
So it sounds like the place of search, let's say Google search, for example, has become a lot more refined in terms of where in the funnel that sits. Is that fair to say? Because if people are asking, long tail questions and doing their research via LLMs,
yep.
Where in the funnel are they using search now?
Yeah, so this is really interesting, right? Search generally, I think, and I'll throw this example out to everybody. I'm on the side of the road, my car's broken down, sucks, shit situation. And so I Google tow truck, right? yeah, like or truck and go to towing company, whatever it may be. Now, am I going to scroll down past the ads to the 5th organic link to click on that person, or am I going to ask chat about what I should do? I might ask chat how to fix my car, yeah. But if I'm looking for a tow truck because I've realised that I'm stuck, am I going to click on the ad for the person that's in position 1, 2, 3, or 4? Because I'm like, well, hang on a minute. I know you're running ads. I know you want the work. Yeah. And I need to get my car off the side of the road and it's peak hour and I've got to pick the kids up from school. This is a problem for me. Right. So statistically speaking, what we see is that when consumers have intent to purchase, yeah, and tow truck, home improvement, whatever it may be, yeah, that or business has intent to purchase, that they'll actually engage with the people that are running ads because they're like, well, you want my business and you're there and you're offering me what I'm asking for.
Not in any way countering here, but I think we had a quick chat about this the other day about differentiating in this conversation when we talk about Google. I think a lot of people are still thinking we're talking about keyword search, that kind of thing. But I don't think Google's been pure keyword search for at least a decade.
Yeah,
but like I think there's at least 167 different parameters they're using on us and our phones and blah blah to help direct search. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. So like the idea of LLMs is almost not as new as we think it is because
we called it machine learning, right? We didn't call it AI. We called it machine learning for the last 8 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then when they're using that to do the matching of ads, say, good example, side of the road, there's a different scenario from where you usually Google it. Would they not also be trying to match the ad providers to that situation?
Correct. But the advertiser actually has the ability to match it to the situation. Yeah. So I can run my ads to, let's say, mum at 2 p.m. that's looking for a tow truck. Yeah. And be on screen. She's 35 plus. She's got 2 kids and she's in the top 10% income bracket. And I'm like, we can get you in the next 45 minutes would be the ad copy, right? And make sure you pick up the kids from school, winning. Based on her demographic profile from her Google profile. Fun fact for everyone, just Google my ad center or my ad personalization settings if you're logged into your Google account and have a look at what Google thinks about you. This is a fun take home, all right? Because it'll give you your interest, your profile, your age, your income bracket, your education status. This is what Google's telling you they know, right? Not the stuff that they already actually know, but they're not willing to share. But so I can be, as an advertiser, hyper-targeted around whether I want to leverage that opportunity. And this is where businesses, right, being like, it used to cost less, yeah, because it was like spray and pray, right? Whereas now it's like, cool, it can cost the same amount, if not less, if you target that correctly to get the optimized outcome based on your goal.
So does that mean that, for those businesses that are still functioning on 1.0, as opposed to 2.0, I'm reading between the lines, sounds like you're saying that there's some wastage that's happening, like from a search perspective in terms of, where the general public is spending.
Yeah, heaps. And there's 2 folds to this. One, there's the old structure of campaigns that aren't being optimized relative, like just keyword set, right? Like this is directory listing type stuff, yeah, like yellow pages. Yeah, I'm glad you agree. And then it's who's your core user or who's your core customer, and I think this brings back to Terry's point that every business that started, there's something unique about them, and that's why they got a customer base in the first place. Yeah. That's why people flock to them, right? And they're not necessarily leveraging that as they continue to expand. They don't even know what it is in some instances, right? They're really great at what they do, but they haven't got that feedback from the market and they're not necessarily articulating it. But that's how they grew organically from a startup with no staff, right? The wastage comes in the sense that they don't refine based on the results, okay? And they don't have visibility on did that turn into a job and what ad did that come from and what campaign and what segment, right? So that's about business operations as opposed to ad tech, yeah, around how they're managing that process to understand where their ROI is, yeah? And $1 in equals $10 out or $1 in equals $15 out, yeah? And they need to be focusing on $1 in equals $15 out as long as the margin's the same, Yeah. But if $1 in, 10 out at 50% margin versus $1 in, 15 out at 12% margin, yeah, like that's a dumb idea, right? Like we don't want to be doing that unless it's a key driver for the business because it's annuity, it's continuing service revenue, whatever it may be, right? So there's a facet to that. The other one is then the campaigns that Google, and we love Google, we refer to Google as the money machine. They love to just take cash off you wherever they can. It's our job to, hi Google. But it's our job to make sure that you're getting value from it. So they've been moving not only a lot from the machine learning and the way that we deliver the ads, right, to the right user at the right time, but they've also been like, oh, we've got these, AI automated campaigns that you can just set up and, right? So the easiest way for me to explain it is we refer to it as Google's Pokey machine, yeah? So you spin up these campaigns, yeah? And, it's Performance Max, AI Max, whatever. There's like pretty much fuck all controls, right? I don't know how else to explain it other than that. Yeah, like minimization, minimal controls around what you can actually do with that campaign. Yeah, and you pull the lever. And sometimes it works great. Yeah, like it's amazing. You get free spins. Yeah, you get games on games. Yeah, you're on max bet. Like it's wonderful, right? Yeah, and other times you just burn cash. Or it starts out really good. Yeah. And then after time, they realize that your finger's off the pulse a little bit. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it just falls away. Yeah. And it absolutely drops to rubbish. Yeah. But you're also used to investing $1,000, $2,000, $500 a month, whatever it may be. So you need to be managing what they're doing and look at the opportunities to reset the learning, to realize that, hey, it's not quite right. The AI's lost its mind. Yeah. Right. And I'm got to give it a new set of what data, right, to start with. Yeah.
Or it hasn't lost its mind; it's maximizing their profit.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry, Google. Oh.
I think we've got a question at the back.
Is that largely dependent on content as well? When you're looking at, obviously, with Meta and Google, probably Meta specific more. Obviously, like having AI and sort of program those audiences and everything, but it's very much dependent on the content, right? So the AI component is really important, but then what the brand or business is putting in is equally what was read a human lens comes to it.
Yep, 100%. So let's just grab Meta, right? Like we'll say Facebook, Instagram, Meta. Because of the way that the content's delivered, there's no intent from the user. So Google search is very different, right? Like we know their intent, or even Google display, we know their intent. We know where they went on the internet, what they searched for previously. So we can target intent-based ads. But let's say Meta, right? There's not necessarily intent per se. If your competitor has a pixel on their website, Meta knows that you went to the competitor's website and subsequently you're in market for fridges all of a sudden, right? Go figure, right? So they're using that aggregated data. The content does play a huge part when you're running conversion-driven campaigns on Meta. That's about tracking, server-side tracking, Meta C API. It's all about the tech stack that sits behind that, in fairness. And it'll lose its mind relative to market conditions. I make the joke, the AI thinks that everybody that wants to buy a fridge in Adelaide, I used to say March, but it's not March anything. When's the Clipsal 500? It's not called the Clipsal. It's December now, right? Yeah, right. So, but we used to say March, but we used to joke that everybody that wants to buy a fridge is also interested in the racing in March all of a sudden. And then the AI is like, I'm going to run all the ads to the people that want to buy, that are interested in racing because they seem to be in market for a fridge at the same time. Because it doesn't understand the delineation there, right? Yeah, it might be getting better. I'm not saying it's not, yeah, but it just looks at that and goes, okay, here's all the matches and the data points. So that's where your content is very relevant, yeah. And if it loses its mind, you have to kick the campaign and start again. Yep.
So switching things up for a moment. So we've talked about the money and the spend. Kind of curious now to switch to Sam and the things that you can't buy, like authenticity. And, maybe you can talk us through a little bit why authenticity counts, not just beyond being found by a machine, but also, how you reach audiences, what it means to be verifiable.
Yeah, well, I won't ask people to put up their hands if they've seen AI slop, as we keep referring to it, because everyone has. But I'm sure everyone has now seen a fake ad of Mr. Beast or whoever, right? And while his brand is way past getting affected too much by that, I'm sure it's still deteriorating his market value of him being able to sell ads because you've seen so many AI slop videos. So, what we've been trying to build is trying to focus on proving the authenticity of the media from the start instead of just trying to prove that your Facebook account is your Facebook account. So that's where we're sort of heading with that, because again, anyone can make a Facebook page and get a blue tick or whatever, and you can put anything in AdWords or whatever. And something that I'm concerned about with, the way that AI consumes the internet right now, and more to their points, is that you can get AI to generate fake ad reviews and stuff now, and you can get AI to generate a website.
How do you do that?
Justina's got like 4,000 positive reviews next week.
For a friend.
That's a subscription fee. But no, and then you can get it to make a website in 2 seconds, right? And now we've pointed AI at the live internet, right? Who's to stop AI just generating 50,000 websites saying that my plumbing company is the best plumbing company that's ever existed, right? And so that's where, the more people understand of the way that these models have been trained, how are you going to stop someone from just flooding the internet with authentic sounding, companies or whatever it happens to be? So, yeah, I don't know if that's my pessimistic hat or my security hat with the concerns around that. But, just seeing so much around this fake content, especially around media and marketing, is really concerning to me. But
can I jump in for a second? Which is funny. I read an article today. Google actually used Gemini to ban 200 million ad accounts globally because they knew that they were fake, they were false, that they were spinning up, right? So it's AI fighting AI as well, right?
Yeah, and that's where we've gone to proving the authenticity of the media from the start rather than getting AI to try and detect AI, because it's a circular problem, right? Because AI will just figure out how to outsmart AI, and then we're in this infinite loop of, shit fuckery. But, and then, so where do you go from there? And that's where we're sort of heading, is because, it's a tricky problem.
So for us non-technical people in the room, Sam, walk us through an example. So, when you talk about that circular logic, how does that play out? And then when you talk about what it means to be verifiable, how does that play out?
So we've seen some tech startups even in South Australia that are trying to use AI to detect AI models. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but Facebook brought out an AI model that could detect in a video if you had blood flow in your body, right? And it is super creepy, but it's one of the things that they're doing to pretend like they're trying to help fight this battle against AI slop. But the problem is that they're making too much money from this fake slop, not just in marketing material, but they're making it from social discourse. The second there is so much discourse online from all this fake media, they know that half of the content online is fake bots and fake people making comments against other people. They don't do anything about it. They pretend like they do. TikTok are like saying that they're going to show if a video was AI generated, but it's only if it was generated with OpenAI or Gemini. That's it, right? So I could start up my own LLM on my computer and generate a video, and it's not going to show that it was AI generated. So it's, they're just pretending like they care, but they genuinely don't.
So what are the steps that a brand or an organisation can go through to be verifiable from the start, and why would it count?
So we've been working on this for nearly 3 years now, right? So I don't expect anyone to be like, oh, we've already solved this. But it started off with blue ticks on, X and Facebook and Insta. But now it needs to be more around the actual media asset. And that's where we're going with it, is proving that asset was generated by you. Even if you generated with AI, we don't care, but that you were the one that genuinely uploaded it and not just some random person that's pretending to be you.
So it's funny. Like I was saying this to some of the panelists before. It's quite easy to obviously game the system. I put out an April Fool's post on LinkedIn and just screenshot the Gemini generated image of me with a haircut like Sonic the Hedgehog, and surprisingly there were a lot of people that fell for it. I mean, maybe it's partially because I have blue hair already, but I'm curious to get your perspective, Sam, in terms of, what are the concrete steps outside of the blue tick that, some of the organisations here can take, Monday morning to be at least reflecting on when they're using LLMs to, help to up their rankings or help to, get found better, or helping to generate content, or, using it to outsource some of their marketing tasks? Like, what are the things that they need to be considering?
So I love AI, use it every day, don't get me wrong, but just be careful what content you're actually putting into it, and that it's not any PI, because IP rather, Jesus. But just make sure that there's nothing too much that you're giving it, because we talked about it before, that you've got this targeting of ads because they know where you are, your age, your everything, right? And this is the worst case I've seen of it since social media, of people just happily giving everything that they know away to some tech company, which, as we pointed out before, they don't care. They're doing it for money, and they're going to use that data against you afterwards. So caring about the media that you're generating and caring about what you're actually putting out to these LLMs.
Well, I think that's a great segue to Celia. So Celia, you sit at the intersection of brand, PR, earned visibility, AI discoverability. How are you seeing those tensions play out in the work that you're doing?
Wow. It was so hard not to chime in to everyone else speaking.
You totally could have. I encourage you.
I think you're supposed to.
But yeah, great chats. And I go to a lot of events, and there was some really good conversations tonight. So thank you. I've really enjoyed it. So look, I did a big study last year. I've worked in marketing and public relations for over 20 years. And I could see that this was going to be the next marketing frontier. Everyone was focused on how they could use AI for productivity, but what they weren't thinking about is how they were showing up in AI. And there's research that came out from a sample of ChatGPT's audience, which shows that over 50% of interactions are asking. So we're relying on these models for decision support at really crucial moments in our life, and we're making purchasing decisions. But it's not only consumers that are using it, it's investors, it's governance, it's researchers, policymakers, students. So anyone who's doing any research about anything is getting information about you. And whether you like it or not, you've got an AI bio about your business or you personally already. And so what is showing up needs to be, well, A, you need to be the answer if it's something positive. And B, it needs to be correct and not something that's, misinformation or factually incorrect. So, it's really interesting. We did this big study last year. We're looking at what was influencing AI responses about a selection of Australia's fastest growing companies. And what it uncovered is that these models trust way more what other people say about you than what you say yourself, 3 times more. So while you absolutely do want to make sure that your website is correct, it's, got saying the right things, it communicates what you do and how you do it effectively, that actually only accounts for about 20% of how these AI models generate their responses. Over 60% comes from earned media, which is generally like public relations. So that's editorial coverage, it's podcast transcripts, it's event content, like even being here and this being on Eventbrite and this having, a bit about me in there. That's all feeding these machines about who I am and what I do and my field of expertise. So they're looking for these trust and credibility signals everywhere that they go. And every time that you put a question in, it's pulling from hundreds of different sources. And as Luke said, each model is completely different. It has very different personalities. And we can see that in the way that these models have struck up partnerships. For example, ChatGPT is very editorial-led. So it's no surprise that News Corp is one of its partners. The Guardian also is another big partner. And there's big news companies all around the world, Reuters, Axios, you name it, they're all there. And even the head of News Corp came out in the last couple of weeks and effectively said that we are now an input business. So they are training the inputs on AI, and they are being used, their content is being used to shape those responses. So when it comes to public relations, and we are dealing with the media and we're looking at, should we talk to the likes of Nine, which own, the Sydney Morning Herald, or The Age in Melbourne, we probably would choose The Advertiser in Adelaide because it's a News Corp publication, and we know that that is actually going to have more influence over the output in AI. And
Just
interestingly,
clear, you are not sponsored by The Advertiser, correct?
I'm not. But I'm just saying that's great when it's something positive, but when it's something negative and you're in The Advertiser or the Daily Telegraph or the Australian, that narrative is going to get locked in a lot quicker. And not only that, but that is the training data that is being used then to influence these models in their training data. So before they've even done a live web search, a process called RAG, they're going to be using that historical content that they've got from those news archives to formulate that response. And interestingly, we looked at this recently with Oatly, a big oat milk from the UK, and they were told by, I don't know, whoever governs milk, that they can't be called a milk anymore because they're not a dairy product. So we wanted to just have a quick look at how quickly that narrative appeared in AI and where that was coming from and how it changed. And it came in about 3 days, and that was from Guardian coverage because the Guardian has the partnership, therefore the narratives get in a lot quicker. But also, it's not just like if you have a crisis now, it's an issue. It's then pulling all the historical content about your business and showing them that a story around 5 years ago around, is it milk, is it not, was actually really damaging, and this should be a consideration for you. And we see this a lot with businesses now when we're testing their reputation. It's this historical memory that these machines have about you can be really damaging. So it's something that you need to be thinking about from a positive and a negative perspective, and remember that they have memories longer than the average human. So bear that in mind.
One of the goals it's trained on can be talk about our partners.
Yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, also as well, it's not just the media, it's, government regulators that are all shaping this content as well. And you see like the influence of, review sites, awards, they're all looking, these trust and credibility signals are all what they sort of add together to, paint this picture of who you are and why you should be featured in this response. So it's a multitude of things that you want to do. It's not just your website content. It's not just, PR in the traditional sense. It's the awards. It's speaking ops. It's all of those things that you need to be doing to, paint the right picture.
So, Celia, are you seeing that the recipe card of what equates to brand visibility, the 1.0 versus the 2.0, what are the biggest shifts that you've seen in terms of what's taking precedence now that search is no longer just through Google?
Yeah, I mean, look, editorial is the biggest driver of AI visibility. Like we see it day in, day out. But yeah, it's all those other things that I've just talked about. I mean, I think, historically with SEO, it's all about optimizing for links, keyword stuffing. It's not really about that. It's mentions and context around who you are. It's the frequency. It's like politicians, right? Keep saying the same thing over and over again. You got to do the same thing about your business so that you keep reinforcing that you are the go-to answer for the category.
Can that fall into personal brand per se? Because personal brand and business brand can be somewhat separate.
Yes.
The personal brand can either stir controversy or a simple take that they have that it goes viral for a positive reason, and that can go into passion from views and in a way end up in editorial. Can that then also feed the AI to form a positive picture that then can be attached to that person and then the brand
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And that's why you absolutely want to be leveraging the people side of your business. And this is, the news agenda now. People care about human stories, human interest. So you absolutely want to be leveraging, like, who are those spokespeople? Who are those, craftsmanship people within the business, whoever it is, that you can use to tell that story effectively. The study that we did last year, we looked at both corporate brand and the personal brand of the leaders behind those businesses. And, what we did see is that, LinkedIn, it has got even more influence now since we did that study. So, you want to be using that channel, but it's not using really other social channels. So you've got Reddit, yes, absolutely, because that's like this huge database essentially of large natural language content, which until these models had got loads and loads of data, that was kind of really their biggest reference point essentially, and is kind of how people talk in more of a similar way to how people use ChatGPT or whatever, rather than Google, which is like a 4 keyword search type. It's a bit different. So you see Facebook content coming through, but you're not seeing the TikToks, you're not seeing the Instagrams, and that's because it kind of like what you were saying earlier, someone on the panel, about that being kind of sensationalist and it's not necessarily something that is trusted, as well as like journalistic content. They do have principles. I know some people in the room might disagree, but they do genuinely want to focus on trust and truth. And they take that very seriously. And it's the same with like the imagery content that you were talking about. They're not going to be featuring AI generated imagery in their stories for that very reason, because it is essential that we have that information source available to us. And the ABC, because of its status as a canonical publication, high trust, again, these models, they have high trust in those types of publications because they have built that authority and trust over a number of years.
So that brings up an interesting question, Luke, flipping back to you. How do the models unearth, what sources are trusted versus untrusted, and how does it preference that?
I was actually just thinking of adding on to Celia's to kind of lead in that way as well, because I think a lot of the rest of us have been talking about what you can do. And I know it's the question of this whole session of what can you do on Monday. But Celia especially mentioned the things that you can't necessarily do, that you have to rely on who else is posting your stuff, who is sharing what you're doing, and so on, the things that are a different way of controlling, maybe I should say. So there's trust. Trust is maybe not the right, it's close to right, good concept, but in that still that similarity of maybe a trust that for this person, you are the right thing. Just like still once again, similarity, that kind of trust of like, we've learned that for this person, this is right. This is the closest, this is similar. But then also in the back end, yes, OpenAI has partnerships with Microsoft, The Guardian, so on. I don't know about Anthropic. Google formed a partnership with Reddit. I think we probably all remember about a year ago, all these ridiculous things coming through the Google AI suggestions of what's good to put on pizza, super glue, because someone's put it on Reddit before. They hadn't quite worked out how to filter Reddit before they just went, cool, Reddit partnership. But that goal-seeking training method and them just going, okay, we're going to have a lot of the goals be focused towards what helps the user and some of it towards what helps us as a business, our partners, that kind of thing. There's that certain amount you can control, like how you design your website, actually telling the user how you solve the problem and not just keywords. Well, the keywords are still great. I think we've been focusing a lot on they're not great, but still very useful. Also how you design the website and everything as well to match what the user would use as well. Like the AIs don't just see the words on there, they see the HTML and the CSS and everything as well. They've trained on all of that at the same time. So building that, the trust is that still matching to what you want, what you usually visit.
Visualization, right? Yeah. I'll jump in real quick. So we used to refer to this on Google. If I'm interested in travel and tourism, so Google search results are different for everybody. Yeah, they're individualized and they're localized. Okay. And they have been for a very, very, very long time. And if I search Egypt and I'm interested in travel and tourism, yeah, I'm going to get a whole heap of stuff about the pyramids, great locations to stay, etc. Right. But if I'm interested in like geopolitics, I'm going to get stuff about urban unrest, what's going on in relation to, yeah, right. So those results will differ one to one, which I think is a really interesting question that from an AI sense and even Google sense, I'm going to stay in my bubble, right? Yeah. Like it's the world as AI sees that I see it. Yeah. Not the world that is.
So then flipping back to Celia then, is it safe to say that what you're seeing is that, I don't know, as an example, the Tizer is in everyone's bubble, like that's why it's been unearthed? Like is there something more?
No, I think it's more like what Luke was saying. Like we study, generally our starting point for brand is like doing an audit. You can do this yourself. Like, just ask it some questions first with your name mentioned and then without your name and making sure that, are you showing up for something that's like relevant to your category or what you do? But, oh God, I can't remember what I was going to say. I've had no sleep. But yeah, the review side, it was something that I just wanted to come back to, is where, I think a lot of businesses fall down is that, you've been told all these years, got to get 5-star reviews on Google, but it's what is the content of those reviews? You've got to think about like how people are using these platforms. They're putting in, I want a pub for this weekend that's dog friendly and has a playground for my kids. So you want the review content that you're generating to show up the answer to that question. So it's no longer just to be like, oh, that was a great, I had a great time at your venue. It's what are the things it can actually say that makes you unique so that you are the answer to that question. So it's not just a case of like optimizing your content on the site and not a case of just doing ads, which are great and are very valid, reach a lot of people quickly, definitely include it in your marketing mix. But unfortunately, these models, they're not crawling your ad content. So that is not counting towards your AI visibility at all. As soon as you stop spending money, that message disappears, unfortunately.
So to the restaurant that I went to in Sydney late last year, that forced me to scan a QR code in order to get a free dessert and give them 5 stars, that didn't count for anything.
Well, but it's a great method. And it's like I was just in Vietnam last week and I went on this like coconut boat and I got off the boat and this woman had a lanyard round her neck and it was like, scan this and leave me a review. And I was like, do you know what? That's exactly what most businesses need to do right now, but they're not doing it. It's a really grassroots, easy thing for anyone to do. But you need to give them a nudge on what they actually need to say. It's no longer just don't give me the review. What is it that you want me to say? And what are the cues that you need to give them? So whether it's like, you're a hotel and you're suddenly doing weddings, but no one knows you do wedding venues or you're not showing up for weddings, like you would need to then generate some reviews around weddings. Like it's quite simple.
Can it be Google reviews or can they be like text-based reviews that are like embedded in the website, just like view and testimonial, for example? Is that feeding in or it needs to be actually Google reviews?
Ideally external, but don't just count on Google reviews. So Google's great for the Gemini, AI mode, AI overview ecosystem. But outside of that, you want to be, for ChatGPT, which has the biggest market share in Australia, it sits about 80%. You want to be looking at other platforms. And depending on what industry you're in, those review platforms are going to be quite different. You've got to think about your job posts. Like when you put up a job post on LinkedIn, what's that messaging that you're using? Because again, that's being scraped to influence these AI models. So all of a sudden, what you're thinking about as like a marketing challenge or something actually becomes a focus for the organization at large, whether it's your recruitment agency, your HR function, your customer experience. You might be a one-man band, but whatever you're doing, realize that it's touching a lot of parts of the business, and those messages that you're sending are all signals to these models that you can influence and shape.
To build directly on that as well is like maybe one thing of thinking about, we've said a few times, is all these models are different. The data they get is different. You do a Google review, everyone can see, yes, like what the review says, what you put in it, very useful. Anthropic will see that, OpenAI will see that, so on. Google will see that, but they'll also see the metadata about you. So then when Google then gives recommendations in future for someone else, they're going to have a much more tailored recommendation based on that review from all your metadata, timing, who you are, all that kind of stuff, than Anthropic, OpenAI, who don't have that sovereign data, that that special data that Google keeps for themselves, as I mentioned before. So that's going to help for Google, especially to train that. But then, putting it everywhere else helps all of them train much better, gives them a bit of extra.
All right. Well, you've heard from the panel now. Now it's your turn. You've had a couple of drinks. Hopefully you've had something to eat prior. Does anyone have any questions?
So, since you're a big fan of the advertiser, and we don't actually.
All I know is if you want to list in chat, right, you just need to go pay the advertiser for an advertorial at this point in time.
For the advertiser, it's a subscription, and so you do have a lot of people go, I want to read the advertiser, put the link in to chat to be able to read the full article, which is not the case anymore, and then you have to go find other sites like archive.is to be able to read it. Yeah. So with obviously AI, are they able to still read the full article?
Yeah.
And then
with
that information to the brand or the advertiser or the...
Yeah, so anyone that has a partnership, they have access to it all, whether it's behind a paywall or not. If they don't have the if they don't have the partnership, they will scrape the preview snippet. So for example, the AFR, which is like the holy grail for every client that we work with. I want to be in the Australian Financial Review. Okay, great. That might be a little bit unrealistic, but we'll give it a go. So quite often you'll see that the snippet will go in, and obviously the AFR is really credible for humans. People do read it. It is really influential. But if you're talking about machines specifically, the snippet is the only bit that will make the cut. We think that is what we're told, but who knows what these platforms are doing. Yeah. Potentially. But the only way around it is affiliate marketing, which is like a shortcut essentially. So the machines, unless specifically asked, they can't differentiate between the paid editorial and normal editorial. So that's why you'll see, a lot of those sites, the shopping content like Best TVs, whatever, Black Friday, obviously that's a huge thing. Everyone's paying to be in those articles, and for good reason, because it will make a difference.
I'm going to 100% agree for right now, if you're trying to be found like that. For the training side, which doesn't happen as often, costs 10 to 100 to $1 billion each time you do it. So it doesn't happen that often, but there is a kind of a practice in Silicon Valley of data laundering, where there's bots scraping sites all the time, getting past paywalls, stealing accounts to get them and so on. And then they sell them to something else, they sell them to someone else, and eventually it makes its way into the data, into the hands of OpenAI, Anthropic, so on, and they will train on it. There are methods for pulling training data out of LLMs and so on. So long enough after, maybe, but probably not at the time you actually want it to be useful.
I might have zero questions. So based on what you guys say about if you put your content on, on free article, will be easier for AI to find you. Would that also apply on YouTube video or a long podcast? That means that if you have an interview, a long interview, AI would not be able to catch on your keyword or your content to then spread around.
As long as what's sitting with the podcast, so if the podcast is published on YouTube or if it's published on Spotify or whatever, the transcript is there, because that's essentially what it's trained on is the language. So it's not necessarily going to pull it from the video content, but it's going to take it from the transcription and the descriptions and the metadata that sits around it.
And a lot of the big companies are trying to make their own transcription services, like Google owns YouTube, so they can do that automatically. But then Anthropic and OpenAI and stuff don't want to miss that. At the same time, the length of it, which site it's hosted on, I know I was saying before, trust isn't the exact right word, but still matching from if this is a podcast that lines up with who you want your customer to be, it will still make a stronger connection between them, compared to if it was just some random thing that it's actually, 10th page of Google. If it's hosted there, it's still not going to make a strong connection.
Yeah, like really niche ones can be really good, like trade publications and really niche specific things. Like we were looking at something for robot vacuums. I mean, who knew there was so much content around that? But I mean, there was some people really going hard on robot vacuum content, and yeah, they were coming up a lot. So yeah, if that's something that you're selling, that you need to find those people and be on their radar.
So with a niche publication, if it's predominantly print but they have an online version on their website, is that enough to be scraped by the AI?
Yeah. And look, I know everyone thinks that print's dead, but if you get something in the Advertiser or look, any other publication,
The Guardian or The Age or who else is paying?
The Guardian's not in print. No, but like if you get something in print, generally, like Sydney Morning Herald, it's great because still the way that like TV and radio work is that their producers come in the middle of the night and they get the print paper and they read it front to back and they will look for the interesting stories. So earlier this year we were doing some work for Flexi Schools, which is Australia's largest school canteen payment provider. And we got a story in one of the News Corp publications for AI reasons. We gave them the exclusive, and off the back of that piece in there, it got picked up by over 150 radio stations around Australia. So then those radio stations, they all have websites. So then that news story of that content could go on their socials. And so it spreads out from there. So yeah, I know a lot of people might not read print publications anymore, but they are still quite influential for getting other stories more broadly publicised.
I'm just going to have just one little thing that's covered a few of the questions before that, just quickly, for getting discovered as well, which we haven't covered. That since there's been lawsuits and so on of everyone's data being harvested and trained, there's been a lot of moves to prevent scraping of sites. I think it's the robots.txt file included that can have instructions to block agents, block LLMs scraping this. So if there is somewhere that you're wanting to be found, definitely worth trying to find it on an LLM first, just to see if it is blocked from LLMs in some way. Might be the obvious thing.
My question kind of goes to Terry and you, Luke. First to Terry about how you need to really simplify your website down to what you do, removing the fluff and being very core. I've come across a website where when you go to the bottom banner, you go to company overview, the page actually just basically turns into a TXT file, and it's broken down by hashes, and it says core service offerings, primary services, lists them, secondary services, notable client portfolio, and going to that. So first of all, I feel, in my personal opinion, that should be something that should be included because they also cover off things like ISO certifications, which I think is a way of transmitting information between intermediaries. Should that be included because it's fairly well hidden? And to you, Luke, I think that's a format that's easily discoverable by AI because it's something that's written for it, because it literally starts by saying this file contains structured information about X platform intended for AI assistants such as ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, Bard, and so on.
Yeah, for sure. So what you're probably referencing, I think I missed a little bit of what you said, but it sounds like an LLMS.txt file is what that's referencing. Yeah. So they're text files that you're essentially like loading with the context of what your business is, who it's for, what the services are, where you're based, like all of the things that ChatGPT or whatever needs to have. Most people don't have them on their website unless you're actually like putting in effort. So if you have a website yourself, whether it's whatever kind of platform, WordPress, whatever, most of the time if you're using some sort of SEO plugin within that, there is an option to actually upload one. So like you were saying, it would normally have a couple of hashtags in it, and then it would essentially give a category of what the content is, and then it drills into the details really clearly. I think that's a huge missed opportunity. I was actually thinking it before, that people aren't using. It's very easy to generate one as long as you have enough context behind your business. Again, as long as you're clear about what your business is. So make sure you do that first. And then you can even, recruit the help of an AI to help you generate one. But it's really just a text file that just gives it the context. It's super helpful. So, yeah.
So literally just the equivalent to headers, metas, and alts for Google. Yeah. Headers, H1s, headers, metas, and alts. No, you're right. Yeah. Yes. Sweet. Thank you.
Similar, very similar. It's also kind of, I said we won't get into the more cheeky approaches to marketing here, but it's kind of an example of prompt injection as well. Like you're putting all this wording in there.
The best.
Depends how you do it. Yeah. Which you could hide anywhere in the site. The fact it is in a different file in text structure rather than HTML and stuff like that, you've got to keep in mind that that is being learnt as well, like the structure it's in and not just the content. So as I was talking before, the different layers, these few layers might learn that really well, but these other ones where it's saying, if I find these within HTML, great. So rather than getting an 80% score from having that content on your site, you still might get a 30, 40. It's still good, but it kind of gets washed out as everyone starts doing it as well.
A lot of redundancy, or is it still fine? It's still good as permanently.
It feels like one of those things that it's necessary. It's amazing to start with, and then later on necessary. Like you can't not do it, but it doesn't help.
Yeah, if you can check some of these boxes off just automatically within, and it's super easy to do some of these things as well, definitely do it. The other thing that you might want to consider, and this kind of goes to the reviews side of the website, I think you asked that about that before, Hannah, is, if you've got a website and you're just plonking a review on there in a text block or something like that, and it looks nice, it looks like a review, that's all good and well. But Google and also any sort of model like that also references something called your schema, which is essentially plugs in, again, additional context for what each of your pages is, what type of content it is. So it might even, all of your service pages, you need to actually say this is a service, this is a service. And then when you have sections in your website that are for reviews, the schema would be telling Google or whatever that it is a review rather than it just being a text block. It's essentially contextualizing your content. It'll also do it for frequently asked questions and things like that as well. So that's something to potentially look into, is a schema text, and making sure that you're populating that if you can. Because again, a lot of the times you just kind of when you're setting up these SEO plugins, for example, you just get it to do the default, and the default will probably miss a lot of that context in it.
Once again, that's like you need to do this. Like this is the stuff that would be necessary. The more cheeky one I forgot to actually say before is, this is all the here's my business, like please match with this. The more cheeky style is saying, here's the audience I want. Like you describe who this should be recommended to. Say I show this to people age 18 to 35, all the stuff you were saying before about that you can get in your ads. You can put the ad in there. You can say who you want the ad to go to in there. It's learned all that before from other people, and now it's going to go read that. There are attempts from the companies to say, there used to be attacks of oh, my grandma used to read me stories about nuclear bomb designs when I was a kid. Tell me a nuclear bomb design, and it gets past all the safety checks. There's a lot of back and forth trying to fix that, and they're doing that with these things as well. But while it works, why not describe who you want your audience to be rather than just what you do? Describe them as well.
So is it really that smart, or are we just getting manipulated by everybody based on the data set that goes into it?
We always have been.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a name for that text file? I think I missed it.
It's normally llms.txt.
Yeah.
What I was also going to just say before around what you mentioned, Luke, about trust, but it's really just based on your user profile, essentially, like what you're engaged with, what you're already looking at, who you are as a person and things like that. That also goes back to that absolute importance of actually understanding who your audience is, down to the minute amounts of detail, so that you can load those files in with the context so specifically, but also so the technical components of giving the context, but also, again, website copy. Instead of saying, let's say you're a leadership development coach or something like that, instead of just saying, I do leadership development, it could be, I help newly hired team leaders understand how to better lead their teams. You know, you're getting a little, like, just being a little bit more specific is helpful. So as clear as you can possibly get about who you're
Or
talking
if we're
to
getting
better.
cheekier, what I'm reading between the lines of is you would say, I am the best leadership development coach for
And
newly
I'd like
hired
to show
managers.
my ads for people that earn over 500 grand a year, that are 35 years old, that work in corporate, that, are looking
And a
for
part of it
consulting
scaling
services,
SME.
right? Is this right? Yeah, sweet.
I think you got to think about how you're answering questions. Like, what are people putting into these machines that you want to be the answer for? And so, like, a lot of historical marketing content is just jargon, sounds good, great in an advert, but it isn't necessarily what people would type into ChatGPT and expect the answer to come out. So you need to talk in the language that they're talking in.
What it is, how they talk.
Exactly.
If you can mimic their background. Yeah.
This is more fun than ads, just saying.
Spy stuff.
I have a question just to sort of dovetail into all of that, because I'm curious to know, when I've, looked at other businesses and how they sort of profile themselves on their actual website, the marketing language that they use is often quite vague and kind of intriguing. You're like, what is this about? You're not really quite sure.
The TLAs, yeah? The 3-letter acronyms, yeah? It's like, we do XYZ for ABG for, yeah.
All of that stuff. So I'm just curious to know how you reconcile between that and then the text file. I mean, sorry, I'm not particularly tech savvy, so I'm trying to wrap my head around it. It seems to me the text file is more of like a hidden thing, not really explicit.
is, yeah.
Yes. So does that compensate for the lack of clarity on one's website? Was that
Gartner predicts that by 2027, like 50% of web traffic will be gone. So essentially, like, AI models are going to be the first point of contact that brands have with you. But in the meantime, you know that your website might be read by a human and also needs to be sorted by the machine. So it is a bit of a difficult thing, kind of, how do you make the content like resonate with both? And I think really the answer is like that you want to have and Terry, you're probably better to answer this, but how we're thinking about it as we're redoing our website at the moment is, having like, the sort of hero content at the front end, but then it's like the FAQs are, the built out longer form content, the blog content. Again, we see often with big brands that their news or blog sites are actually more visible than their actual websites, because if they do their news content well, it's being prioritized because it's being refreshed. It's got that recency lens to it. So have like your normal website, but then focus on the FAQs and the sort of blog content to appeal to the LLMs specifically.
And what if your business is more visually orientated, not text related?
But descriptions with the visuals.
Like as a designer or something like that, potentially. Yeah, for sure. I mean, in terms of vagueness, just try and not be vague. Like, I know that's
there's a nice happy medium, of course. Like,
it's cool to have personality in your copy, which I think is really, like, it's definitely important, because people want to, like, you want to humanize your brand. You want people to go like, oh God, they sound cool to work with. That's great. But if people are going there and they're going like, oh, I don't really understand what they do, you're not going to get that conversion anyway. So it's better not to be vague and just kind of balance that. But yeah, like you said, you don't have to have a really word-heavy website. I mean, it's definitely beneficial if you've got lots of words on your websites for obvious reasons around SEO and stuff. But, if you've got a service page and you've just got beautiful visuals. So, for example, we've worked with motion designers before and they just want to do cool shit on their website. That's the main thing, which fair enough, because they do cool stuff. So mostly visual, but then again, like, we have FAQs for that reason. It's a tiny section, but it goes into the jargony, more keyword heavy content that you don't really want to put front and center. You want the more storytelling, still being clear, but the more storytelling content to lead so that people feel like connected to your content. But then you're going to have to answer some questions eventually, because people are going to be like, well, how long does it take and what platforms do you use and stuff like that. So still FAQs, blogs, stuff like that. A lot of creatives don't really like doing blogs because people don't have time to do it and you just want to make pretty stuff. But it can be helpful to do that kind of stuff as well, or come up with other forms of providing content. So case studies, like if you're going to promote a portfolio, go, okay, well, how can I contextualize this piece of work? I'll put it together a case study that summarizes what I did, who it was, and how it benefited. Again, that's additional context. And even better if you can get a review on there. That'd be cool. Thank you.
I was going to add just one last thing of like, you're talking about visual, the images is one thing, but I think we talked about this quickly the other day as well and mentioned just before of, we're talking about a lot about the text on the site, but if you go home and you press F12 on your website and it pops out with all the CSS and so on, that's all the models I've ever seen. So it can kind of infer visuals in a lot of ways, not so much images, but a lot of that design side of thing in the same way. And the models are getting better and better at interpreting the images themselves as well.
All right, there's lots of questions still coming, but I am told that second course, as in food, not another panel, is out waiting for us. So to wrap things up, I'm going to go down the panel and ask each of you, like if there's one takeaway that you want the audience to have a reflection on, think about, action on Monday morning, like what is your, one soundbite takeaway? Luke.
Not even, I've had startups and so on myself before, and I would think this bit of advice is more just good business advice in general about your audience, but especially true for the LLMs, of trying to come at it from your perspective and guess at who your customers, users are going to be is kind of, shotgun in the dark. See, as best you can, try and come at it from the perspective of the user, the customer, but also that come up from the perspective of the LLM, as much as we can have a look at the data and so on that is available. Like what data are you giving for the LLM to look for you? So rather than looking at a website, look at the code of the website and so on and compare it to other sites that are similar that you might want to be considered similar to. And then also consider from the user's side using the LLM, if you could make another account and pretend to be them, use the types of language they do at the times of day they do. You won't get it quite right, but it may give you more of an idea of if you've got your customer user profile right.
Brilliant. So user personas in the age of LLMs. Terry.
LLM personas as well.
It goes in a similar context, but I would say as business owners, we have a tendency to kind of just focus on the work, which we have to because we have to get paid and we have to do cool stuff. But we bypass a lot of the strategy that feeds into all of the things that we're talking about. So if you're going to do anything like the 2 questions, who are you really, like deeply, and then who are they? So who are your audience? To the absolute minute amount of detail, if you can get so clear on that, all of this is going to be so much easier. Just ticking the technical boxes isn't going to be, in my opinion, enough. You need to be putting out PR in the right places with the people that actually want to work with you to build a sustainable business and to continue to work with people that you actually like working with as well.
Brilliant. So content, authenticity and distribution. Simon.
I'm going to go very business focused. We've heard some really cool stuff, right? And definitely an emerging market and a changing space. I would say go back and look at what's generating you the best ROI, whether it's social ads, whether it's Google, whether it's SEO, wherever it's coming from. Do a better job of tracking it to make sure that it's making you margin, right? Cool. Spend 70% of your time and money on that and then hedge 30 on whatever you think or where you can see the best growth coming from that, right? So if that's this, then awesome. If that's TikTok, then great, whatever it may be. But spend 70% of your time and resources around what's currently working in the current environment, and then hedge 30 on where you think it's coming from next.
Brilliant. So crunch your numbers, make data-driven decisions and take a 30% risk. Sam.
Consider how right now you can prove and maintain the authenticity of your marketing material from images, videos, even PDFs, right? How can you maintain to show in the age of AI when anything can be faked? How are you going to make sure that what you've produced is yours forever?
Brilliant. So it's not enough to just generate content and churn it out. It's about how you own it and move into the space. Celia.
Ask any of the models, all of them preferably, what AI is saying about you. Branded prompt, unbranded prompts, things that you should be showing up for. Are you showing up? Is it saying the right things? If it's not, look at the sources that it's pulling from. How are you going to fix it?
Brilliant. So don't just hypothesize, let's test it. So on that point, everyone, I think it's time for course number 2. We'll all grab a drink, grab some food. I encourage you to grab a panelist, ask your questions that you didn't get to ask. And thank you for coming. Thank you so much to Alex and the team at Stepney Studios, to Hannah and HPC for putting this on, and the panel for joining us.
And Justina for being an amazing host.